Okay. Hello,
Hello.
folks. We are live. We're going to give people a couple minutes to keep on coming in here. I see some people. Filtering in, so we'll just wait. But maybe, Punit, how are you doing?
Good. Yeah, I'm excited. Excited for this webinar.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be fun. Yeah, I see some people coming in already. It looks like we're about 100 people, which is cool. We will keep waiting. Where are you today?
I'm actually in Seattle, working with some of our team up here.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is
but usually based
Anthropic
in San
like
Francisco.
where are the where are the Anthropic offices at?
We have offices. Kind of our major offices are San Francisco, Seattle, New York, and London. And then we've sort of, we're opening some others as well as we grow.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, y'all are in New York, right?
Yeah, we're kind of spread out. So we started like right after COVID started, and so there was no real option at the beginning to be fully in person. But we have a presence in New York, an office in New York, and an office in SF. But I personally am in New Mexico right now, which is kind of random.
Oh, I grew up in Albuquerque. Wow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm up in like the Taos area, if you know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
A whole separate conversation. I
Yeah.
recognize the door from so many houses of
Yeah.
friends growing up.
Yeah.
That,
It's
like
cool.
being Mexican.
We'll wait one more minute. I see the number of people joining continues to go up, which is cool, and then we will dive in and get started.
I've got my whole New Mexico jacket right here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, with all my New Mexico pins.
Very cool.
Yeah.
See people from all over here. Looks like we have someone from in Uganda, in Chile, in Idaho, California. I see my friend Brian who's joining, which is cool. Hey, Brian. We've done enough of these now that some people come back, which I'm flattered by. It's cool.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, I think. Are you ready to go ahead and get started here?
Let's do it.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started, and people keep filtering in. That's cool. So I am Zach. I am the founder and CEO of Warp. Today I have Punit, who is a PM on the API team at Anthropic, joining. I'm really excited for this. We work really closely with Anthropic. It's an amazing company and obviously amazing models that power a bunch of what Warp is building. I'm very grateful that we're able to do this joint session together. Super duper cool. Punit, do you want to quickly say hi, introduce yourself, and then I'll go into the agenda?
Yeah, I would love to. Hi, everyone. Good to meet you. My name is Punit. I'm a PM on working on our API, and I'm really excited. If you think about Claude, there's kind of the side of our apps, and there's the one of making Claude available to the world with all the amazing applications folks like Warp and others have built atop it. And so, that's where I focus, giving the intelligence to the models to enable a whole bunch of other use cases, and previously built developer platforms and AI products elsewhere. So yeah, really a huge respect for what you all have been able to build.
Cool. So I'm psyched to do this. So what are we going to do today? So this, for people who have come to prior live streams that I've done, it's going to be a little bit similar, but a little bit different also. So this is going to be in two parts. The first part is going to be a more typical thing where I build something by prompt and show how I work. And it's actually going to be really cool what I build this time. It's going to be a CLI app, which makes sense given Warp's origins as a terminal. And it's going to be a CLI app that accesses and lets developers play with Anthropic's API, which makes sense given that Punit is here. And I think it should give an intuition around like how to build with LLMs, both from the perspective of like coding by prompt, but also like looking under the hood at how these APIs work. So you can build some intuition around like if you want to build an app on Anthropic's API, what that experience looks like. And then in the second half, we're going to do something totally different, which I think should be interesting to folks. We're going to do a little bit of a fireside chat where Olivia from the Warp team is going to join and ask kind of me and Punit questions around like product management, future of development, agents, that sort of thing. And it should be a pretty cool, fun conversation. We'll take some questions from the audience. At the end, we'll give away a promo code for Warp for people who want to try it out. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get going. Sound good, Punit?
Sounds great. Let's do it.
Okay. And so Punit, like as when I normally do this, Punit is going to sort of MC and take audience questions as I go here. Can you all see my screen correctly, Punit? Because I can't see what's going on as I'm doing this.
I can see it. Yeah, you're sharing your full screen.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I think let's go ahead and dive in with the first part. And just to expand on what I'm going to do, I'm going to make an Anthropic CLI, and it's going to make calls against Anthropic's API. I'm going to do it in Rust. Warp is built in Rust. Rust is probably what I'm most comfortable working in at this point. We're going to do a little bit of exploration about like how the API works. And then we're going to be like playing with some parts of it, like the system prompt and conversations. So let's go ahead and get going. And like the way that I would typically start something like this, this is Warp, by the way, for people who aren't familiar. In Warp, just to orient folks for a second, you can use it as a terminal. That's kind of its roots. Like I could type terminal commands. But the main way that we use Warp today as an agentic development environment is simply by prompting. And so that's what I'm going to do for this entire session. So I'm also, by the way, I'm going to prompt using my voice because it's not fun for people to watch me type. So let me just go ahead and get started. So can you describe to me the structure of Anthropic's LLM API? Maybe give me an overview of the main endpoints, please. So I just hold a hotkey and talk, and then I go ahead and do this. And this is like, you could do this in the Claude desktop app as well. You'll see some nice things though about doing it in Warp in a second. Punit, is this all showing up okay? Making sense?
Yeah, this is great. Voice as an input mechanism is awesome.
Yeah, it's super, like if your primary thing that you're doing is prompting, it's really, really nice to just be able to talk. It's so much faster.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think this is what I was expecting. I've looked at this before. So there's a messages API, which is the most interesting one for the purposes of this, and also a models endpoint. I'm with the person who designed these endpoints, so I think if we have questions, I could probably ask you too. But what I'm going to do here is just get right into it. And if I want to build this CLI, but I first want to understand actually just like before I do any coding, what sort of like if I were to do this in a raw way using curl, what it would be like. And so I noticed that I need to have an API key. I happen to have one of these in Warp that's stored in a environment variables object, which is a Warp feature. So I'm going to go ahead and try to not leak this API key by just putting it into the session. And now I have an Anthropic API key. So I'm going to go ahead and test out just the models endpoint here. Could you construct a sample request to the models endpoint? There is an environment variable you can access for API authentication called Anthropic _API _key. Just format the results really simply so I can see what models I have available. Okay, so again, before coding, I like to just like, this is how I would do things as like an engineer in a pre-vibe coding world. I do the same thing here. And let's see.
That's cool. Auto kind of corrected because it looks for the messages endpoint right there.
Message.
But it like figured it out. That's nice.
Yeah.
Huh.
I wanted it to do. Is there no models endpoint? What's the models endpoint?
I don't know. I'm trying to think. We have one.
Let's see. I swear I did this earlier.
There's a models endpoint v1/models. Interesting.
Let's see what it's doing. It's still figuring this out. So one thing that it's cool that's going on here is it does self-correct. And let's see what we got here. So it figured out the available models and it constructed a request here. So let's go ahead and have it. I don't know why it says there's no dedicated models endpoint. There is one, I think.
Yeah,
so,
there's one. Yeah.
Is it v1/models?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there is a models endpoint at v1/models. Could you try making a sample request against that? One thing that's tricky, so I did a dry run of this like 45 minutes ago, and it was like slightly different output. There's like a non-determinism to using these things, which I'm curious if you have any on the Anthropic side advice for people who are developing in a world where there's this non-determinism. So this worked this time, by the way. So I got all the available models, which is what I wanted to see.
Yeah, I think it's tough. I think it is like one of the most exciting but also challenging parts of building on LLMs. I think like notoriously so.
Yeah.
I think that everything from, I think it's like the experimental mindset is something that I've always associated with growth teams. But like if you're on other teams, it's like, okay, we're just building this thing, like doing user research, but there's a little bit of like, do the research, build a thing. And, you know, not just like waterfall-y, but you do that in a kind of rigorous way. And I think that like the experiments become just so much more important, and the like tools to respond to the experiments are like prompting, evals. It's like trying to create the set of tests that like give you confidence going forward. But then you always find these use cases or scenarios you're like, oh shoot, I never thought about that. Like it's like any unit test suite, it's never complete. And yeah, I think that's like one of the fun but challenging parts. And like you end up using vibes, you know, more than you care to admit, I think, for every customer I've talked to.
It makes total sense. I mean, I'm sure when I did this dry run, I prompted it slightly different, you know, and so just a slight variance in how I prompted it got me a different output here. I did get to where I wanted to get to, which is cool. This is one thing I love about using Claude. It's like very enthusiastic and supportive of me as a developer. You were right. There is a V1 models endpoint, which is, there's like a personality to Claude that I really like. I'm going to go ahead and keep chugging along here. Let's go ahead and set up the scaffolding for this Rust project. So can you set up the scaffolding for a brand new Rust project that has a single binary called Anthropic? And for now, just make a hello world program and we'll go from there. So we're going to start the coding here. I want to be mindful of time and get to something cool through that by the halfway point here. So again, this is in the realm of pure time savings to me. So sometimes I use LLMs to do things I don't know how to do. So this time I do actually, I would know how to set up a brand new Rust project. And so, but this is cool. And one of the things I really like about doing this in Warp is, this looks right. It's going to give me the cargo.toml. It also shows me all the commands that it did this. If I actually wanted to see, I get the brand new structure for it. So this looks good to me. And another thing I'm going to do is, so here's our hello world program. I tend to look very closely at the diffs, by the way. You know, I'm not like a huge vibe coder in the sense of like, I really want to understand what it's doing at every step. So we're getting there. So cargo check, cargo run. Let's make sure we see hello world. We're good. We don't need to keep going. It tends to want to like really do the full thing for me, which makes sense. Can you also make me oh, looks like we have a Git repo here. Never mind, we're good. So we have a Git repo. Let's go ahead and set up the scaffolding to make this a real CLI app. So having built CLI apps in Rust before, I know that there's going to be some libraries that I want to use. I don't want to create a library for doing this command line parsing from scratch. So I'll be like, what are the top 3 options in Rust for doing command line apps with good flag support, argument parsing? There's one that I know that I think we're going to want to use, but I'm just curious what my options are here. Clap is the one that I want to use. Does this make sense, Punit, what I'm doing here? Just kind of setting up the scaffolding. Yeah.
It's like giving you a bunch of the options so you can see the context right in the same place. That's cool.
Let's go ahead and set up clap as the library that we're using for the command line. Let's also go ahead and build an initial command, which is the one that fetches the available models. So that'll be like Anthropic models list will be the command that I run. And let's go all the way to the point where we've built that and can run it and verify that we're able to see the output. So I do think this is one where I probably could have, to get to this point, kind of like one-shotted it. I think it's not that complicated of a task, but this is the way that I recommend, or the way that we do work with these models on our team. I'm curious how it is inside Anthropic, is like very iteratively, where I want to, it's not just that I want to tell it the outcome that I want to tell it as much as I can how to do it at this point. When I found that when I don't do that, let's look at this full file for a second. I found that when I don't do that, I end up with results that I have to sort of backtrack on. So let's look at this. So it's making an Anthropic command. It's annotating it with nice stuff that's going to show up when I run help. It has one thing right now, which is models list. This, and then it has a very simple main. And here is the list models. Let's see if this does the right thing. I'm a little surprised. Yeah, no, this all seems actually totally right to me. So let's go ahead and do this and see if it runs. And basically at this point, I'll have gotten to a Rust program that does the same thing that curl command that I did ran. So it's going to do cargo build. Let's see if the build works. It's probably pulling in a bunch of dependencies, which is why it's taking a little longer. So this is another thing I like about doing this in Warp, is I can see the raw internal commands if I want, which is nice. Okay, cargo run. So first it checks the help command, and then it checks the models command, and then it's going to check the models list. It knows how to fetch my API key, which is pretty cool. And let's see what we got here. So perfect. Okay, this makes sense where we're at. So now we have a CLI command that I could just run. I think I don't need to do a release build of it right now. So I'm going to hit Control-C on this and stop it. Let's make a commit with where we're at now, and then we're going to continue. So another thing that's nice about kind of being at the terminal-ish layer here is that you can sort of seamlessly switch back and forth between doing coding tasks, terminal tasks. So, and it's gonna, again, this just like saves me time. I'm very lazy when it comes to commit messages, but Sonnet is not. Sonnet gives you something very, very good here. And we've summarized now what we've built, and we have something very simple here with this. Okay, now let's get to the more interesting part, which is like, let's build something against the, was it the messages API? Is that the main one?
Yeah, that's right.
Let's build something against the messages API, and just like, I think this is very interesting for people who want to build against any LLM API. How does this work? So let me start building it, and then I'll kind of give my explanation. I'd love to hear yours. Let's add a new subcommand called Anthropic chat that lets me take a user message and call the Anthropic messages API and get an LLM response. For now, just choose a sort of sensible default system prompt where it's like a helpful AI assistant, and go ahead and code that for me. Let's also have this command take a -- model parameter in case the user wants to specify a model, and we will default the model though to Sonnet 4. All right, let's see how it does with this. So here's my understanding, and I'm not the person on our team who's doing most of the development against Anthropic's APIs, not even close. I'm going to go ahead and apply this, and then I'm going to push fast forward on this so this thing can just run. You know, the API is all stateless, right, Punit? So it's like it's anytime you call it, you're basically putting tokens in and getting tokens out. And if you want to do something that like, matches like an interactive chat conversation, which is what we want to do here, you have to always be sort of passing up the full history, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And there are ways to make that sort of more efficient with prompt caching, which is one technique that we use. But to me, it's a really interesting API. It's very simple. It's tokens in, tokens out, and whatever context you want has to go with the request. Now, is there subtlety to that I'm missing, Punit, or other things that developers against Anthropic's API should be aware of here?
No, I think that's roughly correct. It's like you take in the chat history, and you want to pen more messages onto it. You send the history, and then you kind of put the latest message, the user message.
Yep. Let's take a look at what's going on here. So we have a new chat, which is right. It takes a model. I love how this works. Okay, so here is the chat request. It's the simplest system prompt that you can imagine. We'll talk about the system prompt in a minute. It takes the content. It says that I'm doing this as the user. And so there's generally two roles, which is the user and the agent or the system. And the user means like it's user input, and then we also can send back the output that we got. But let's go ahead and just see how this is working. So hello, how are you today? And then Claude comes back and says, hello, I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. I'm here and ready to help with whatever you might need. Or a more complicated one was the capital of France. And this is using a different model, Haiku. So I think this is so cool. So now it's like, it's really so easy to use. So now we have this Anthropic chat with a model parameter. And this is cool. So let's commit this progress. And Punit, what should we do next? Should we play with the system prompt? Should we make it so you can do multi-turn conversations? What do you think would be most interesting here?
I feel multi-turn would be really helpful, because managing that history, if you're doing this from the CLI, seems pretty difficult.
Yep. All right. Let's do a really simple version of multi-turn. And the way I'm going to do that is just by serializing the conversation so far to disk, and then reading it back with a new prompt, a new user prompt. So I think this will be cool. So we're just doing this commit. And it's thinking, it's coming up with a commit message. I don't know why it's taking long. There we go. Because we got a pretty detailed commit message. Cool. All right. So now we have this Anthropic chat and Anthropic models endpoint. Let's do multi-turn. So Claude is really smart. So it's giving me ideas for what to do next, which is pretty cool. So let's implement multi-turn conversation support. The way that I'd like to implement this is by serializing the conversation so far to disk, and then having the ability to reread that conversation plus a new user message and send that all up to the LLM. Use a -- output parameter to specify a file path to serialize to, and a -- context parameter to read that file in. Go ahead and make the code change for me. So in case folks don't understand what's going on here, at every step now, I'm going to write the conversation so far to a file. It's going to be serialized, I think, probably using JSON is what I'm guessing that it's going to do here. Let's take a look at how this is going to work. So there's 2 more arguments to this. And it's going to update some imports. It needs the file system functionality, which is right. And let's see how it's going to structure this. Yep, it's using Serday, which is the Rust JSON serialization. So this is what I expect. It's going to serialize the conversation history. Each chat message has a role, which is either going to be like system or user and the content. And then we're going to be able to write it and read it and get to a multi-turn conversation. So let's see how this goes.
Cool. It's fun. It's like, it's cool to see how it's showing its thinking, and then you kind of see the steps interleaved with that.
Yeah, I think it's really nice. Does this CLI exist? Do you all have something like this for playing with the API? See this one.
Yeah, I think there's yeah, I mean, I think like when I've used it a lot, I've like been used like to test the API. There's like, we have like the playground in console, or like doing curl requests, but I think something like this is of course so much richer, and the idea of like not just getting the output but then being like have that summary is pretty convenient.
Yeah, I think having a CLI here is actually pretty nice. What happened here to Warp? I think I had a crash. Sorry, everyone. Let's see if folks on the engineering team at Warp are watching. I would love if someone could figure out what just crashed there. Let me see.
I know it's live.
Live demo. That's how it goes. This is our internal build, so it's like a little bit less stable. Let me see if it. One thing it should do, and we'll see if it did it right, is like it should understand the context of where I was at. But I'm not sure if it did or not. We'll see. Can you test the multi-turn conversation functionality that you just added, please? We'll see if it still has context. Can you still see my screen here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. Good. I'm interested in seeing if we have this feature where it should be able, after a restart, to pick up the conversation. So, okay, that actually makes me pretty happy that it was able to do that. But something is broken. It needs to get the API key. So one of the coolest things here is like, it is self-correcting in a really powerful way. Okay. Perfect. So now we have a single turn conversation that's being saved to this conversation.json file. And let's see if we can continue it. This is what the serialized file looks like.
Cool.
Which is super cool. So the system prompt, and then there's an array of messages. This is the first thing that it asked on my behalf, which is cool. And then this is the response. Claude likes Python apparently, and now it's going to continue it. It's so funny. It's saying that I love Rust. Can you tell me what makes it special for memory safety? And then it's passing in this initial conversation, and then it's going to rewrite it. It's telling me about Rust, and it's continuing the conversation, and on we go. Where it's now
doing its own eval, which is so cool. Like it almost feels like it's writing its own eval and then going through it, which is notoriously difficult.
It's super. It's so neat. So let's see. Interesting. So it has I'm curious it's going to be able to fix this. So it put in, there's a shell quoting error here, which is breaking things. I'm going to stop it for a second. I think we're in a good spot though. We should get to the sort of like fireside chat here. Is there anything else that you want to see really quickly with this? Do you want to play with the system prompt for 1 second?
Yeah, let's do that. I feel like one of the things that I feel like AI-driven development allows for is like really like being able to implement your own taste into the product. And so like, yeah, if there's like, I don't know, are there ways you like the specific parts to voice that you like of when you work with LLMs that you want in particular, Zach?
So one of the things I like about Claude in general is just like the friendliness of it. But let's do something funny just to show how you can, by setting a system prompt, you can totally change the personality of the agent. Is there a personality you like? Otherwise, I can pick one.
I feel like a good, like, I don't know, I've been watching too many comedy clips, which is good New Yorkers. Yeah, I don't know if there's like a pirate is the standard one as well.
You want a pirate?
Let's do a pirate. Let's do it. Speak to you like a pirate.
All right, let's do that. Can you change the system prompt so that the assistant speaks in the voice of a pirate, and then run another conversation for me, please?
I feel like it's some of the things I sometimes put in my own in Claude projects is just the ask the next question that I might ask, and I find those to be really helpful as well.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So then you're it's like thinking about the thinking for you, which makes your life a lot easier.
I like that. We're gonna try the pirate conversation here. Let's see what we got. This is a classic one. Ahoy there, matey. Trips Tricorn hat. Are you the right Buccaneer? This is super fun. I encourage anyone who is doing any kind of software development these days to play with this. It's such a foundational part of what it is like to work as a developer right now, is having an intuition around how these LLM APIs work, especially the Anthropic one. So anyhow, I think we got to a really good spot here. Let's switch gears and do a little bit of chatting and Q&A. Sound good?
Sounds great.
All right, cool. I could also probably publish this as a GitHub repo later. It got to a pretty useful spot. So I'm gonna remove this. And hey, Olivia.
Hey, yeah, we should definitely publish this. Nice to see everyone. I'm Olivia. I'm Warp's product marketing manager, and I'm really excited to join and help lead some of the discussion here. So to start off, I feel like whenever I watch one of these demos, it feels really futuristic. And I am curious how you guys approach product development and product design for these types of very futuristic workflows. Punit, maybe you can kick off with how you're thinking about this at Anthropic.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how quickly the models are progressing. And I think that's a surprise to no one, even if you're not working in the space directly, to see how much more capable these models are every few months. And I think one of the hard parts in building products is figuring out not just what's interesting to users today, but figuring out what's going to be interesting, where the model capabilities are going to go. And I think that what those enable is pretty wild. We started, a year ago with Claude or these models being able to do, order of minutes of work. And now we're kind of up to order of hours of work. And the things we need to offer to make people successful at that look really different if you're talking about minutes of work versus hours of work. Mm. And so I think for us, it's about figuring out, no one was talking about long running agents just 6 months ago in the same way that they are today. And so I think that idea of how do you build for the need that's coming up is something that's been really hard. And there's a little bit of trying to predict the future without actually knowing what it's going to look like and being able to directly test it today. That's both scary and exciting at the same time.
I think at Warp, we have this sort of the same problem from the other side, which is trying to guess how quickly the models are going to improve and sort of building for what's next as opposed to building for the technology today. And it's I've never had to be in a position as an engineer where it's if we just built for where it's at today, we're building the wrong thing. I'm very sure of that. And so aiming ahead, maybe not so far ahead that you build a thing, it doesn't work at all, but we have to aim ahead and have to make a bet on the rapid improvement of the models. And yeah, one of the things that we're thinking about for sure is as the agents can go for longer and longer, what's the right form factor? What's the right way of letting, in our case, developers specifically have control and visibility and the ability to correct an agent when it does go off the rails. And so it's the most interesting and fun kind of product development I've ever done, because when I was doing product development in the past, you never had such a moving target for the underlying technology that you were building on.
Yeah. That non-deterministicness. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
The non-deterministicness that we were talking about it earlier, I think is the exciting and stressful part of trying to make some of these systems work. That's also fun.
Yeah. And one other thing on the product development side for us is what you said before is really true around, you need a measurement mindset as you're developing these apps, because there is this non-determinism. And it's like it's a big mindset shift on the engineering side for us of like everything we do now needs to come with a sort of eval or measurement or test in production to make sure that we're actually improving matters. It's very easy to like improve something in some local way, but maybe regress it in some other way that you don't realize. And, again, my background is like building applications, and usually like the way that we would do sort of quality assurance of those is like, you do a bug bash, you write a whole bunch of unit tests, and like that doesn't quite work for when you're developing against, the LLMs. It's a different mindset.
Yeah. Zach, on that note, do you want to talk a little bit more about how we're thinking about evals? I know when we were first dogfooding some AI features, it was hard to tell whether they were actually working or not.
It's really changed for us. So like when we first started and everything's moving so quickly, it was kind of like, put your finger up in the air. It's like, does this feel better? And if it feels better, like internally, then we're like, okay, let's put it out. But as the types of workflows that we're trying to support get more and more complicated, especially as we've really tried to become world-class in supporting coding, you just can't get there unless you have a set of sort of like evals that function as like measurements of your quality. And so we do it against the like the public benchmarks like SweBench and Tbench. We also do it against our own, like we pick use cases and workflows that we think should work. They might not even work now, and that's fine. We'll put them in the eval set. And we have a sort of like set of very involved test cases that we can run to see like really where we're at. But then we also have more of like a kind of golden set of evals that we can run more quickly as we're doing iterative development. And I think it's been like Warp's quality has really improved. And it's because of that. And it's like, even though we're building on the foundation of the best models here, it's like there's also a lot of stuff that you need to get right at the application layer in order for the experience to be right around like how you prompt it, what context you provide. And so just having that framework to measure it has been really important.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Punit, how are you thinking about it on the Anthropic side, or how are you advising some of your customers about how to test what they're building?
Yeah, I mean, I think evals is notoriously, like every customer I've talked to, I think feels somewhere on the spectrum of this is hard and we're still struggling with it, to they feel really self-conscious because they are like, we should probably be doing it on more than just vibes, but we're doing it on vibes. And I'm always surprised by the number of people. I'm like, oh, like it's that difficult that it feels really challenging to get. And I think the hardest part from talking to customers is there's a challenge of even figuring out what are the right test cases to put together in an eval. And I'm a bit biased coming in as a product manager, but I do think that this is like one of those moments where I think that like it's like a PM's moment to shine, so to speak. And then it's like you really have to understand what is the use cases that you're driving towards, and like have an opinionated view. And I think in some cases, like take the risk of being wrong, but like saying like we need to have some version of like here's what we're optimizing for. And I think it's like easy to want to be like, okay, we're going to go look at user inputs to get what's the use cases. Still really valuable, but like in a lot of cases, especially enterprises, you can't look at that data. And so I think it takes the PM's role to be like, I'm going to go talk to users, come up with a point of view, and then assert that like, here are the things we're going to go test for. And like, great, as you progress, you're going to go learn, you're going to use the product day in and day out. You're going to learn like, oh, we didn't cover XYZ use case, or, oh, there's this emergent use case we didn't think about. And that's like a great success problem. But to start from some point of view and to build from there, I think is really, really important and helpful.
I agree with that. Like a lot of it can just be like, what do we think, what are the workflows that we actually care about solving for here? Let's pick some like golden examples of those. Like, I don't think you've got to go crazy, like, just pick some good use cases where you would want to do it yourself and make sure it works, and then talk to your customers and see what those are. Is totally right.
Yeah. The kind of idea of opinion here is super, super interesting. Because it's like you have this moving target of how good the models are. You have the moving target of what the workflows that will matter in the future to build for that are. So kind of curious here, like when we're thinking about software development, tools like Warp, tools like competitors, like what does that workflow of the future for software development actually like look like? Like what is the opinion there?
You want me to go or you want to go, Punit? I have thoughts, but you go first if you want.
I'll share my thoughts, and I'm curious. I mean, you're even deeper in this space, working closely with developers. So I'd be curious how much this matches your view.
Yeah.
I think like one thing that I think there's probably two big observations about how I see software development changing. One is, and I think this is like a great example from what we were doing earlier with the demo, was just I think that the developer becomes much more like a TL than a full hands-on keyboard working through it. It's not that they're not getting into code. It's not like they're not doing code reviews anymore. But I think you did a great job of being like, okay, here's the architecture of the system I want. Like I want to save this into a file. You're asserting this. And I think a common pattern I've seen with a lot of AI development tools is around what's the plan I want to do? Let's get really, really crisp on what's the plan. And then let's go implement. And I don't think that's actually that different from how good software gets developed. If like you have a thought, you think before you type. And I think that like a good TL is really good at knowing like, okay, these are the moments, here's how we're going to structure this, here's the architectural decisions. And you're kind of doing that same thing, but you're kind of working with now agents who are kind of implementing some of those features. I'd say the second part is taste. I think there's this great essay on like how taste is eating Silicon Valley that I'd read a couple of months back. And I think that it really represents to me this idea of if software can be instantly created, you can dream it, it can exist. You used to buy software based on functionality, but if any functionality can exist, actually what you're buying in some ways is the taste of the maker of that software, the ability to customize it to your needs. And you have some sense of your own tastes and needs, and other times you don't. You kind of have opinions, but you can be influenced. And I think that idea of caring about like the design of it actually becomes so much more important, because it's the part that is really human and is really important to be able to control, I think, as the software maker. I'm curious your thoughts though, Zach.
I mean, I fully, those are 2 points I fully agree with. Like the daily workflow for a developer, I think for like the next 6 to 12 months, something like that, is going to become much more around like you as a developer, rather than like opening up your code editor and like finding a bunch of files to write code in, or opening up the terminal and typing a bunch of commands. What you're going to do is guide an agent by prompting, or probably actually like guide multiple agents, because it's not that fun actually to watch them work. Like you can kind of set them to do something, and then when I think at least right now, it depends the type of development you're doing, you're going to want to be able to jump in and assist pretty often and review and work pretty iteratively, like a pretty tight loop. If you're working on like kind of like harder, more complex problems. If you're working on things that are pretty simple, or like maybe just like kind of like more just like the range of acceptable outputs is wider, like maybe like a marketing site or something, you might just totally let it go to completion and just look at the result. I do think though there's a lot of like what I think of as like more professional engineering use cases aren't like that, where it's not enough to just like give it an outcome and let it goal seek. You actually have to guide it as an engineer and make sure that the thing that it comes up with like fits into the system, is composable, is testable, is not going to make for an unmaintainable mess. It's going to cause like a production outage. And so I think as an engineer, your job is going to be, guiding and sort of supervising if you're doing pro use cases. I do think there's going to be a bigger and bigger set of use cases though that can be done fully autonomously, that are maybe not as like interesting to a developer, and super like, I don't know, the time frame for that is like that's already happening right now, but it's like the use cases that can be done but like that are going to get bigger and bigger. So I don't know, I think it's pretty cool. It's like you still need to be the engineer and the orchestrator. In a sense, you're moving up a level of abstraction, but all the thinking that you learn how to do if you got a CS degree or you've studied engineering for a long time still very much applies. It's just like you're not like typing as much in some way. Literally, maybe even speak.
I'm curious, like as you've like coached developers or like you work with developers, how have you gotten, like that's a new mindset for developers to take on? And I'm curious from your position, like how have you brought developers along for that journey? Or is it just a little bit of like, here's the tool and try it out, and people sort of figure out what the emergent patterns are?
It's an awesome question. I posted something on LinkedIn about this and it was like fairly controversial. I find in my experience that it's actually been the more experienced of an engineer you are, the sort of the harder to adopt, or like the less inclined you might be to adopt these tools. Whereas conversely, if you're like not super experienced as an engineer, or maybe you're not an engineer at all, it's like this is opening a whole new capability that you could never do before. And so the adoption is just like, it's so magical for those people. Whereas like if you've been coding for 15 or 20 years like me, you're like, I know how to do this faster. I know how to do this better. This thing doesn't save me that much time. It creates stuff that I have to fix. It's like, why am I doing this? And so the way that we approach it from a product perspective is like, I don't think you can't force someone to change their behavior. The best way to get them to change their behavior is to have like a moment in the product where they're like, oh, I get it. This was actually awesome. It fixed this super duper annoying thing for me. It saved me a bunch of time. So if we can get people to experience that kind of aha from a product perspective, I think that's the way to do it. From like an engineering management perspective, Warp, we've sort of published our kind of like internal guidelines we have on trying to code with agents, and maybe Olivia or someone on our team could post those in the chat because it's publicly available. I've had to ask people to start every task with a prompt, and I don't enforce or make people finish the task with a prompt, because at some point it's like I want them to do what's most productive for them. But since we're building a tool in this space, it's really important that we try at least to use what we're building and see how far we can get, and then pass on the feedback for where it fails. And I don't force people to only use Warp, by the way. Like I'm happy to have people use all of the tools on the market, and it's a great way for us to learn. And I'm also seeing when we talk to customers that this is like one of their biggest challenges. Like if you're like a CTO or like a head of developer tooling at a bigger company, they're like, how do I get my developers to work in this way? And so it's a really interesting kind of challenge right now.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay. I mean, on that note, we're going to try something new for our Code with Zach. So I have a poll for the audience.
Oh, cool.
I know, very fun. So here, question 1. So what is your experience with AI dev tools? If you comment in the chat with one of these like 1 through 5, it should start updating if this is working. So let's see. But yeah, throw a 1 through 5 in the chat, and we can hopefully start seeing things.
This is interesting. I think we have a pretty skewed audience here. This is awesome.
This is super cool. I guess, as we watch these results come in, Zach, Punit, anything surprising or here?
Well, one thing I would be curious about is like to drill in one level deeper in terms of like how many people are using like agentic development tools versus using like AI autocomplete, because AI can mean a bunch of things here. I think the AI autocomplete fits very naturally into the like existing developer workflow, whereas I'm going to start with a prompt and do an agent thing is pretty different.
Yeah. I guess there's like chat, which is just the sort of like even like replacing the Stack Overflow query to the autocomplete to the agent. Like there's like that spectrum, and
this is so cool.
I mean, the chat is very bought into Agentic. Yeah. Okay.
We have like, I think, a very forward AI forward group of people in this live stream, which isn't not shocking to me.
How many skeptical? I think that's being covered. Is it?
That is a great question. Skeptical, it is covered on my side too.
I know.
It might actually be 0%.
Oh, I think it is. Yeah. I guess if you sign up for the webinar.
Yeah. Well, my next question was going to be why are people skeptical? But I think that's no longer relevant for this group. Fascinating.
And we got one skeptic.
Okay, one skeptic. Let's go do the next question just for the fun of it. So curious for those who especially those who are using it for specific workflows or skeptical, like what's holding you back from using AI tools more? Again, like throw in the chat.
This is awesome. Great idea on the poll here. I'm digging this.
Yeah, it's a fun way for some live feedback.
Yeah. This is interesting.
Are you surprised, Zach and Punit?
I don't trust them to write good code. I don't always trust them to write good code. That makes sense to me. Cost is so interesting here because they are, if you think of them as like a SaaS subscription, they're pretty pricey. I think that's totally legit. It's like you could end up easily paying the same amount for like an AI development tool with really high limits that you pay for like your cable bill or your gym membership or something. If you think of it though, in terms of like the amount of software you can produce with and without compared to like your time and labor, I feel like it's like the biggest point of leverage in software development ever. And so I would be really curious if you had I don't know if folks in here or anyone is like on the enterprise side, but to pay like 50 to 200 bucks to have engineers on your team be able to produce, I don't know, 50% more code, 100% more code, like whatever it enables is like a crazy deal. So it's super interesting to me to see this feedback. But we get a lot of, I don't know if I want to say complaints, but like requests on pricing, like figuring out how to actually price this stuff, I feel like is very hard. I don't know, Punit, if you have thoughts on that, like,
yeah,
it's a challenge.
No, I think it is. I feel like I've heard one sentiment from those that manage like more like dev prod teams, developer productivity, that they're actually the ones who are more, I wish some of our teams were using these more, because from their side, they're looking at it from the perspective of what's the output. Well, I think developers are very like well-meaning and like, I want to save my company money. And often like, well, actually like the company is wanting to get more code. And so there's a little bit of this sort of like differing assumptions about what's important. I also think there's like a category of tools that we're starting to see emerge of like, like pen tests. They happen periodically. Very few companies are doing this like as a daily routine of like pen testing themselves. But what if that was a daily routine? And like, it's not like most companies can afford that. But you could actually have an automatic running pen test with, maybe bringing in the experts for the craziest cases more periodically.
Yeah.
Like that'd be huge value.
Yeah, I'm seeing some things in the chat here around like the individual versus the enterprise. I think that it matches totally what I see. For enterprises, they're like, this is how do we get people to use it more? They're not super price sensitive. For individuals, it's totally understandable to me, especially people who are international. Like I think we have a very US centric bias. It's like, that is like a real amount of money. So it's this, and I'm also seeing some things where people are paying for a lot of these. That's a common issue as well, as people are like figuring out what their preferred sort of tools are to do this workflow.
Yeah, I'm also seeing a couple. Curious for those who put other, throw in the chat what other is. I did see one on like enterprise visibility and like governance being one, and some of the control there a little. But yeah, these are super, super interesting. Is anyone feeling like they just don't know how to get started with some of these tools, or what type of like how to create prompts, how to just like learn how to use tools well? Seems like no, but seeing accountability come in. This is super interesting. Everyone, so we have around 5 minutes left. We'll be giving out a promo code, but have a bit of time for like one more question if anyone in the audience has anything.
Yeah, I see Thomas's maybe controversial, but they're not that smart yet. I think being oh, here it is. This is a great one. I don't disagree. I would say to me it's pretty domain specific. I find definitely like when working on Warp itself, which is like a million lines of Rust, and trying to do something semi-complicated, unless I really specify what I'm trying to do and tell it how to engineer it, it just doesn't work that well. And then that matches the feedback I get from like a lot of more senior pro engineers working on more established big code bases. These things, obviously there's like these limits around context window size. There's limits to sort of what you can do with RAG and like, so I don't think that's that controversial. I actually think that that's like a representative viewpoint that I see from more senior engineers, and it's a good call out.
I think it's definitely like, it reminds me a lot of like when you work with a colleague who's good at some things and not good at others, but they're a hungry learner and they're going to get better. And I think to me, it's like, as a PM, I'm always like, okay, like this person's strength is X. How do I play to their strengths? And like, look, this is the thing that they are just not gonna Gil, I'm gonna give this task to someone else. Like totally reasonable. It's totally fine. Like still important member of the team. And then, 6 months later, they surprise you because they're actually able to do this new thing. You're like, great. Yeah. Like, I'm really excited that now you've leveled up.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's 100% right. Like I would definitely, you should be using these things constantly because the rate of improvement is wild. And like, it is the case that I know a lot of like more senior developers who maybe tried this, the agentic coding 6 months ago, and it really didn't work that well then. And now it works way better. And I think 6 months from now, you're going to be like blown away again. If I had to guess, I'm assuming you all are improving things at Anthropic.
We're trying.
Yeah. Well, we see the benefit of you improving things, I think. Yeah. Awesome. Well, we are almost at time. Zach, Punit, any closing thoughts or any kind of reflections on your end after this?
Maybe.
No, I thought this was super cool. I think one thing, I've done a bunch of these live streams now, and just to my prior point, every time it becomes easier. Like if you go back and watch my live stream from like 3 months ago, or maybe the one with the dog climbing on my keyboard, like it didn't work very well. And so it's really fun for me as I do these to be able to do things with a lower and lower error rate, and they go more and more smoothly. And I do think some of it's like awesome engineering work that we've done at Warp, but a lot of it is like stuff that Anthropic has done to really improve the core model. So we're really psyched to be working with you all, and appreciative that you came today.
Yeah, no, I think likewise. I think it's exciting to see the models get better, but like what's really interesting, and the models themselves are not that useful unless there's amazing, interesting applications built atop them. And I think it's fun to see how you have built something that's like the agentic part of being able to actually create this, and like I think the self-correcting nature is really fun of seeing in these class of tools. And I think Warp does this really well of like being able to like really just kind of help itself and just see how it's getting better, and like really squeeze out what's the most intelligence you can get out of that model that we're learning from folks like yourselves and how you do it. And so it's really, thanks so much for sharing.
Awesome.
You want to do the promo code and then we'll wrap up here? There it is.
Yeah, there's a promo code, very creatively named Warp Claude. This is for a month of Pro, and then shameless plug, we'll be doing more of these kind of every other week throughout the summer. So if you want to see more of Zach demoing Warp, sometimes with a good discussion at the end, keep an eye on our Luma.
Cool. Thank you everyone for coming. I hope this was interesting for you all. I thought it was a super interesting discussion. Thank you, Punit, for joining, for moderating here. Everybody have an amazing rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.